Hello, Lighthouse. Today we come to our last topic on loving the lost and evangelism for this portion of Truths for Troubled Times. Now, at the offset, there's actually a lot of irony as we consider this topic. Romans chapter 10, verses 14 through 15 reminds us that the normative means of evangelism comes to person-to-person connection. And yet, this season is anything but that. I mean, even with the stay-at-home order slowly being relaxed, we're still asked to cautiously maintain the 6-foot distance and stay home as much as possible. Moreover, for some of us, due to the fact that we're health workers or we live with those who have or ourselves have compromised immune systems, this has become a reality that we begrudgingly have had to accept. So, how can we leverage this specific season and steward this season well in evangelism? I think one way we can steward this season well is by practicing hospitality. We are all in a unique season of life to position ourselves for gospel opportunities by practicing hospitality to our unbelieving neighbors. Now, I'd imagine you think it's a bit strange that we're talking about hospitality, and so it might help us to ask this question: what is hospitality? The idea of hospitality isn't just putting on a dinner party or a block party. It's not just having people stay over. It's more than just the idea of hosting. It might include those things, but hospitality is intentionally taking an interest into the lives of outsiders, progressively moving toward them so that they become part of our circles and that we might be in a better position to love and minister Christ to them. We see this even in the New Testament. In the New Testament, the word hospitality is a compound of the words love and stranger. It literally means love for strangers. This is clearly seen in Hebrews 13, verses 1 through 2, where we're instructed to let brotherly love continue and do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. Rosario Butterfield defines it this way: using your Christian home in a daily way that seeks to make strangers neighbors and neighbors family of God. Progressively moving towards strangers so that they become part of our circles and that we might be in a better position to love and minister Christ to them. You see, hospitality toward our unbelieving neighbors is how we uniquely present the love of our Father, who likewise loves beyond his circles, according to Matthew 5:47, to those who are on the outside. By practicing hospitality, we are physical reminders of Ephesians 2:19 to the world and to ourselves that God has made a way for us so that we might be no longer strangers and aliens, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. But what does that practically look like, especially during this season where COVID-19 is still a reality? Well, let me suggest for you a couple of ideas. The first is this: get to know your neighbors. If you're anything like me, you probably have noticed more of your neighbors out and about. Whether it's because they're taking a walk or simply because you're both at home and so you see each other outside of your garages, common areas, etc. Can I encourage you just to get to know them? And Lisa and I have taken our daughter Harper out for walks on a regular basis, and we've found ourselves seeing the same families out on walks over and over again. Through this, Lisa and I have gotten to know one family in particular and have grown a relationship with them. For myself personally, I've gotten to know single men throughout our neighborhood because I've been able to walk our dog Faithy. As you get to know your neighbors, you're entering their world and inviting them to enter yours, just as God has done with us. So even if you've seen them before, let me encourage you to make the point and even say, hey, I've seen you a couple of times around before, but I don't know your name. Start there. Number 2 is this: find ways to be hospitable, even if you can't invite them into your home. When we think of hospitality, we tend to see it only in regards to our homes. But I think we can still practice hospitality even if that part of the equation is left out. One of the ways Lisa and I have tried to do that is with the family that we've gotten to know is that we'll usually text them before we make Costco runs to ask if they need anything and then drop it off for them. And for the surrounding people closest to us, we'll try to drop off gifts such as tote bags for their kids or little art projects for them to do. And by way of encouragement, what we found is that they've returned in kind. Question is, what about you? How can you be hospitable even if you can't invite them into your home? Can you cook them a meal? Baked goods? However it is that you choose to exercise hospitality, let me encourage you to do just that. But remember, we're not just being nice. We're not just being nice just to win brownie points with our neighbors, More than that, hospitality is a touch point and relational doorway by which we get to have access into others' lives and that they might have access into ours, so that one day you can safely say, would you like to come over for dinner sometime? Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 reminds us that what we sow now, we will reap. So though your efforts might be limited now, future invitations to come over when conditions allow will be all the more weighty because they've seen your consistent interest and care for them. Because you'll be better positioned to love more deeply. You'll be better positioned to minister the gospel more effectively. Through these touch points, the hope is that you would be able to give them access into a life touched by God and the gospel. So pray. Pray that God would use you in however little or much you have to be hospitable to others so that they might one day bear witness to a hospitable God who's drawn us into his presence even when we were outsiders of his grace.